Hey everyone, Melanie Menchinger here, illustrator for Gina K Designs. Today I've got a new project for you with my newest set from Gina K Designs, Magnificent Mallard, and I'm going to show you how easy it is to create this single layer card with this beautiful scene of this faded blended water and just some very simple grass in the foreground. In addition to this set, you're also going to need some cardstock. Today I am using the Gina K Pure Luxury Heavy Base Weight White. This is perfect for a single layer card, and your alcohol marker coloring will not transfer through the other side. I have a scoring board here, so this is 5¼ inches by 11, and we're scoring it at 5½. But I'm going to wait until after I have done all of my coloring and blending and stamping before I fold that. You're also going to need something to stamp these with, so I have got the Mini Misty here, and this is perfect for restamping your detailed images or your greetings, but then I've also got a small block, and I just like this for being able to flip the stamp. I'm going to show you a little tip with these cattails, and so I'm going to use that for those images. The ink pads that I'm going to be using today, I have got the Gina K Grass Green for doing this pretty swampy or pond water. And then I'm going to be using the Gina K Designs Obsidian amalgam ink for my stamping. Also got a white gel pen that I'm going to be using to create the ripples on the water. This is from Arteza. This is an assortment that I really like. They come in packs of 12, that have a 0.6, which is fine, 0.8 for medium, and a 1.0 millimeter for bold. So I use these all the time on my cards. They're great for fixing little boo-boos, for doodling, for making outlines around greetings, for adding highlights like I'm going to be showing you today. So just think they're a really, really useful tool for your card making. I've also got one of the Gina K blending brushes for that water. I have got some scratch paper for just covering up my craft mat when I'm doing that blending, and then also to test my markers, to do some test strokes for this grass if you're not comfortable with creating that, just to have it to get you ready to do those strokes. Any alcohol markers will do. I recommend that you have 3 different greens for doing the grass. So a light, a medium, and a dark. We're also going to be using a darker and a lighter green on the head, and then some kind of rusty brown and a gray for the body. So whether you're using Copic, Spectrum Noir, or Arteza markers, you can do this with any of those. So I will put down in the description which markers I'm doing. But let's begin by stamping out this scene. And I meant to have my heat gun fired up so that I could hit it before I do my coloring, but I'll just wait to do my coloring on it. It's been really humid here, and so sometimes I do get a little bit of bleeding when I use the amalgam ink, but it is still my favorite for stamping my black line art images. Okay, so I'm going to take this Mallard Drake, that's what the males are called, this beautiful bright green head, and there's so little coloring that you have to do on this image. It has all of that stippling and detail built into it. So I want to have this about 1/3 of the way, and this is going to give me room for my grass but also the water around it. And if you want to have it stamped farther out so that it looks like it's just kind of coming into view, or the whole thing, either way. So I'm going to put it right about there. Close my window, and I am going to wait. I'm doing the duck first so that I can see where I want to do my blending around it, but I'm waiting on doing the cattails so that I don't smear those. I'll do those afterwards, and I'm going to do the blades of grass last. And of course you can go back and forth if you decide, you know, I really want the water to look a little bit darker, or I really want more blades of grass. You can add those. So I always kind of recommend doing a little bit and then kind of looking back and seeing, okay, here's where I think I need a little bit more contrast or a little bit more detail in my card. Okay, so I'm going to do just a little bit more here on the face. Try to give it a light touch just because I don't want to lose that detail with a pad that is too juicy. That's the nice thing about the Misty. You can always go over it again, the areas that you feel need a little bit more detail. Just a little bit more. And this is all going to get filled in though with color, but I just don't want any areas to look streaky. All right, that's how I want it. So let me just clean this off a little bit before I take it off of the door so that I don't transfer that ink all over my fingers. All right, so next we're going to take this out and I'm going to blend some water on here. So I'm going to put my scratch paper underneath this, and I've got my pad, and I'm just going to swirl this around, and I'm going to start at the bottom because it's going to go dark to light. So we're going to start at the bottom and work our way up, and I want it to look equal on both sides. Okay, you don't want to have it really dark on one side and really light on the other side. So I'm starting off the edge of my cardstock in case I have it too heavy. And remember, this is going to get covered up mostly by those blades of grass that you're going to draw on. But you do need to have it filled in with the grass. You will see in between those blades. Okay, so I'm just kind of going back and forth and looking at where I've got it lighter or darker. And then I'm going to go up and around the duck. And I don't have, and see, I can see that it is transferring that darker ink just a little bit. So be careful around that edge if you haven't heat set it. And if you want to cover the duck, you can, but I just don't feel like it's necessary because you do get a little bit of the water reflecting off of those duck's feathers. Okay, and I'm just going back and forth so that this just can softly lead up to the top of that card. Okay. All right, now what I want to do is I am going to stamp some of these cattails. So I have a large and a small one, and this is going to allow you to create depth in your scenes where it looks like you've got ones that are up close and then ones that are further back. So you have a foreground, a middle, and then a background. So because it looks like a silhouette, I'm going to go ahead and just have it overlapping the duck like that. And then without re-inking, I'm flipping it over, lining it up, and stamping it on the bottom. And that just going to look like a little reflection right there. So if I used the one that's the same size back behind it, that's going to make it seem like this one is huge in regards to, or in relation to this one, because your eye thinks that things that are the same size must be much bigger if they're in the background. So that's why you've got this smaller cattail. So I'm going to go ahead and stamp this over here. And then just gently flip it, line it up. Okay. All right, now let's go ahead and do some coloring on this duck. Now I'm gonna go ahead and put the greeting on as well. So let me do that. So it's my husband's birthday next week. So I think I'm gonna put for my husband on this one. I put so thankful on the previous one. Make sure this is clean before I lay it on my Butterfingers today. And husband. All right, so I'm going to put it right about here. They're still a little bit sticky because it's a newer set. So when they're clean, they tend to stick to my fingers a little bit. And I just want to make sure for getting this lined up that it is just running parallel to the bottom of my card, and you can use these grid lines on here just to check that. Okay. What? Oh no! Super clumsy. My coffee is not doing good things for me today. I need to drink some water. Okay, so close that. All right, Now let's go ahead and add the coloring on the duck and do some ripples on the water. And this is what's really going to make it look like water just rather than blending. And so you need to have a color and a marker that is slightly darker than whatever ink you used for just the main color on that water. And then you also want the white. So any waves are going to have a darker portion that is away from the light and then a bright white portion that is the reflection of the light. Okay, so I'm going to start by doing, let's see, where are my greens? I got so much stuff on my desk. Okay, so I want these little ripples. I'm going to be tracing around these little ripples here, but then I'm also going to be making just some gentle dashes, and they're just going to fade off as it goes up in the green. So I'm just skipping along, just making them parallel to the bottom of my card. Back there. I'm going to go in a little more with that green. It's just that it was so, I could see it was kind of blending my ink, the black. Okay, so now what I want to do is I want to take my white pen and I'm going to go in, and it might take you a second to see these kind of revealing themselves on the cardstock. This is the 0.6, so if you want them to look thicker and stand out more, you could grab one of those 1.0, or it's going to be easier to see down here on the bottom. Let me grab, actually I'm going to grab the bolder one just because I want to make sure you can see this on camera. Let's see, what's a 6? A 6. Here's white. So let me get it going here. I'm going to go over that little boo-boo I got from the green. So if you don't have a sand eraser, you can just cover up your marks. So that's one way that I like to use my white pens. So you're not gonna, okay, that's much better. That's much easier to see. Okay, so this is the one. And so it's really important. That's what's gonna make, and you can go, you're gonna go over the reflection there because that's water there. That's not the actual cattail. So we can add some more later, but it's done whenever you think you've got enough. Just start with a little bit and then add. All right, now let's go ahead and color this duck head. So I'm going to use the Arteza one, and I have this drawn so that it is stippled so that it looks like it's a really shimmery green feathered head. And even though you've got certain areas that are black, you still want to go over it with your green marker. It's just going to look a lot deeper and like a black green rather than no transition. Okay, so got that lighter green there. Then I'm going to go in with this darker green. This is 2553 and it just has a little bit of blue in it. It's just a real nice jade. And so just the more that you have contrast between your colors, just the more drama and depth you're going to have, and it's just going to create more light in the card because the lighter areas are going to look that much lighter and brighter. And now I'm going over and I'm just blending over the areas so that those greens will go together. Okay. And then we've got a couple of yellows here. So I have got the 937 and 944. So one is just like a more pure kind of a sunny yellow. And then the other one just has a little bit more brown in it. If you only have one yellow though, then go ahead and just layer it over and over. So I'm just putting this at the bottom of the beak. And they're kind of into the head. And I didn't go all the way up to the edge. It's kind of reflecting off that pale green from the water. And then I'm going to take my white marker and I'm going to draw just a little bit of a line there so that it looks like there's a reflection on that hard edge of the beak. I'm also going to put just a little white dot there in the eye. That's just going to make it spring to life. Now I'm going to take, you want a kind of a rusty brown, so I've got the 2491 cinnamon and the Arteza or EB5 for my Spectrum Noir. And whether you want to use the chisel tip or the bullet tip, we're going to go in and just put a little bit of this on the duck's breast. And then we're going to trace just along the top of its back. And I'll blend this with the blending pen. Okay. And then I have got, let me go ahead and I'm just going to go in with this, the colorless blender. So this is the 0. So it's just going to soften that up. And they have a little white ring around their neck, so if you end up accidentally covering that part up and you want it to look really realistic, you can just go back in with that white gel pen. Now I've got a lighter gray marker that I'm going to use just to add some shadow on the underside of the duck along the water. They have kind of just a real soft gray. Just a little bit along there. And I have all that stippling and then just the little strokes that show the texture of those feathers. And I'm going to go in and I'm just going to soften that. Okay. All right, now let's practice doing our blades of grass. So you can see I was putting this on there just to test out the different markers. So I've got one that's just a really nice bright green. I'm just kind of catching the edge of that on there. But so what you want to do, whether you have a chisel tip or a bullet tip, you always want to start from the bottom and go up because it's always going to be fatter at the bottom, the blade of grass, than the tip. You're also going to put the most pressure as you start, and as you pull away, you're pulling up, but then you're also pulling off. So you'll get used to it just the more that you do it. You don't want any completely stick straight blades of grass. They're always going to be bending one way or the other from the wind and just growing towards the light. So you need to have them going both directions. So we've got the lighter one, we've got a darker one, and then I've got one that has some brown in it. Okay, so just practice until you feel comfortable. Here's this one, this DG4, and this is just going to add, it might look really brown, but it's just going to add that depth that you need in your scene. So let's go ahead and just put this over and just start out with just a few blades of each color to begin. And I went ahead and I'm having it overlap my deck because it looks like we're sitting in the grass. Okay, so there's that first color. Now we're going up. So see, and I'm varying the blades because they're not, it's not mowed, this is a pond. So you're going to have them going all different directions. And you want them going off the sides of the card. You don't want it to stop just right in the middle. And then I'm taking that darkest green, the brownish green, and adding this in. And this is going to really create the look of peering through layers of grass. Okay, that's it. Very simple. So we're just going to fold it up, and that's it. Easy, easy, easy. So this is another one that I did. I accidentally made the grass too high. I dropped my pen. So wait, this was my original one. Okay, so here we go. So here is our card. So thankful for my husband. I hope this was helpful to you in seeing how to create this scene. You could even put a little bit of white, you know, on the edge of, just stipple in some, and it just looks like light is reflecting off of that shiny head. So fun to just add little details like that to your card. And again, go in, you can see I made these at different times, so one has got a little bit more white, but it's just really fun creating these scenes. So I hope this card was helpful to you. Post your creations online using the Magnificent Mallard set, or any scenes that you create using the techniques that I showed in this video. Be sure to tag me because I want to see that if you're putting it on Facebook or Instagram, so I can comment and let you know. I'm really glad that you are using these techniques and enjoying my stamps. Thanks so much for watching today. God bless.